The galaxy was vast. Empires rose and fell, but one truth remained constant: might ruled over mercy. The XLR Dominion was among the most powerful of all. Their empire stretched across thousands of worlds, crushing anyone who resisted. They had fought and conquered for centuries, believing themselves invincible. But their greatest mistake was not in battle. It was a single act of cruelty. And they would pay the price. The small human colony of New Dawn was peaceful. It was one of Earth's many settlements, far from war, built for families and explorers. It had no weapons, no soldiers. The people believed they were safe. They were wrong. The Dominion fleet arrived without warning. Warships darkened the sky. Their landing crafts touched the ground like metallic beasts, their engines roaring. The people of New Dawn ran, terrified, but there was nowhere to hide. The XLR soldiers marched into the streets, cold, ruthless, unstoppable. They dragged people from their homes. Fathers and mothers were separated from their children. The elderly were pushed aside, some too weak to even resist. The leader of the invasion, Commander Rethak, stood in the center of the colony, looking at the frightened humans. His species had conquered 100 planets before. This was no different. But there was one problem. The humans refused to kneel. Even in fear, they did not beg. They did not break. Commander Rethak's patience grew thin. He had expected surrender, not defiance. And so, he made a decision, one that would seal the fate of his entire empire. A young girl, no older than 7, clung to her mother's leg. Her name was Emily Carter. Tears ran down her face as she watched the soldiers drag her father away. He fought, but he was only a man. Against the Dominion, he had no chance. Emily didn't understand war. She didn't know what the Dominion was. She only knew one thing: her family was in danger. And so, despite her fear, she stepped forward. "Stop hurting my daddy," she screamed. The crowd gasped. Silence followed. Commander Rethak turned his head, his dark eyes locking onto the child. A smirk crossed his alien lips. "Is this what your people call courage?" he said, his voice filled with mockery. Emily did not move. Her tiny fists clenched. Her mother grabbed her, pulling her back. "Please, she's just a child," she begged. "She doesn't understand." Rethak chuckled. "Then let her learn." And then, in front of the entire colony, he lifted his weapon. A cold, sleek energy pistol, humming with deadly power. Emily's mother screamed. People cried out, some begging for mercy. But there was none. A single shot echoed through the air, and the little girl fell. Her small body hit the ground, motionless. For a second, no one moved. No one breathed. Then, her mother let out a sound so raw, so broken, it made even the hardest Dominion soldiers flinch. She crawled to her daughter's side, shaking, sobbing, holding her as if she could bring her back. But Emily was gone. And the universe would never be the same again. The broadcast heard across the stars. Rethak ordered his soldiers to record the execution. It was meant to be a message, a warning. The Dominion was supreme. No species, no colony, no child was beyond their power. The video spread across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched. Some cheered. Some cried. And then, it reached Earth. On Earth, in a darkened war room, high-ranking officials watched the footage in silence. No one spoke. No one moved. The only sound was the echo of the single gunshot. Then, one man stood up. His face was calm, too calm. With a voice like steel, he spoke only 2 words: mobilize everything. The Dominion had made a mistake. They thought they had won. They thought Earth would be afraid. But they had done something far worse. They had made humanity angry. And now, they would learn what that truly meant. Across the galaxy, empires and factions whispered about the broadcast. The execution of a human child was no small event. Some species had seen the footage and felt sickened. Others, like the ruthless Grax Confederacy, laughed and called humanity weak. The Dominion. They were proud. Commander Rethak stood aboard his warship, watching the stars. He had received thousands of messages from across the Dominion. Praise, admiration, approval. This is how power was maintained. Through fear. He smirked, knowing the humans could do nothing. But he was wrong. And soon, he would learn why. Earth's answer. Far away on Earth, the halls of the United Human Defense Command, UHGC, were filled with rage. Generals, admirals, and leaders gathered around a massive holographic display. The footage of Emily's execution played once more. It was the last time anyone on Earth would watch it without acting. "How many ships do we have ready for immediate deployment?" asked Grand Admiral Jensen. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with fury. "All of them," replied General Carter, Emily's uncle. His fists were clenched. There was no debate, no hesitation. The Dominion had signed its own death sentence. The order was given. The fleet was mobilizing. The sky darkens. 3 days later, the first sign of Earth's response came. Dominion outposts on the outer rim detected something unusual. A small blip on their sensors, then another, and another. Within hours, the sky above several occupied human colonies darkened with the arrival of warships. But these were not Dominion ships. They were human, and they were unlike anything the Dominion had ever faced before. First contact, the Fleet of Vengeance. The XL-Airy outpost on Varan 6 was the first to witness humanity's true power. A fleet of hundreds of ships appeared in orbit, sleek, angular, and heavily armed. The largest among them was the UHS Retribution, a dreadnought-class warship nearly 3 times the size of any Dominion cruiser. Admiral Cole, a veteran of 100 battles, stood on the bridge. His expression was grim. "Send the message." A transmission was sent across all Dominion-controlled systems. It contained only one sentence. "Your time is over." Then, without waiting for a reply, the humans opened fire. The first blow. The bombardment was precise, merciless. Human warships moved like predators, cutting through Dominion defenses with brutal efficiency. Advanced railguns, plasma cannons, and kinetic strikes shattered enemy fortifications. The Dominion's arrogance was its weakness. For centuries, they had ruled by fear. They had never faced an enemy that fought not for conquest, not for power, but for justice. Within 2 hours, the Dominion base on Varan 6 no longer existed. And it was only the beginning. Panic spreads. News of the human attack spread quickly. In the Dominion capital, High Lord Vexar watched the reports with disbelief. "Impossible," he muttered. "They should be begging for mercy." But they weren't. Instead, they were hunting. More outposts went silent. Human forces struck with precision and speed. They did not conquer. They did not take prisoners. They erased the Dominion's grip, one system at a time. And at the center of every attack was one battle cry, spoken in every language, on every world. For Emily, the Dominion had never known fear. For centuries, they had ruled with an iron grip. Planets fell under their control without resistance. Their fleets, massive and relentless, had crushed every species that dared to oppose them. But now, they were afraid, because they had woken something they did not understand. Humanity wasn't fighting for power. They weren't fighting for conquest. They were fighting for vengeance. And vengeance does not stop. The fall of Outpost Sigma-12. On the remote Dominion-controlled moon of Sigma-12, General Kavar of the Dominion Defense Corps stood in his bunker, watching the holoscreen. He could hear the explosions above, feel the tremors as his forces crumbled. "How are they winning?" he roared. "We have more ships. We have stronger fleets." A terrified officer stammered, "Sir, they're different. They don't fight like us." And that was true. The humans fought like they had nothing to lose. Every strike was precise. Every attack was calculated. They didn't waste time on negotiations or demands. They came to destroy. Sigma-12 was wiped off the map in under an hour. Not a single Dominion soldier survived. A message from Earth. Across the galaxy, species that had once feared the Dominion watched with fascination. Human broadcasts spread through hidden channels. The face of Admiral Jensen, the leader of the counterattack, appeared across screens. His message was simple. You took one of ours. Now we take everything. The Dominion had expected weakness. Instead, they had awakened monsters. The turning point. On the Dominion's core world of Valkar Prime, High Lord Vexor gathered his war council. This is getting out of control, one general said. They are burning through our forces like wildfire. It's time to escalate. Another growled. If they want total war, we will give it to them. Vexor hesitated. For the first time in his rule, he wasn't sure if war was the right answer. The humans had always been seen as insignificant. But now, they had become unstoppable. And worse, the other species in the galaxy were watching. Waiting. If humanity won, the Dominion wouldn't just lose a battle. They would lose everything. Earth prepares for the final strike. On the bridge of the UH Retribution, Admiral Cole looked at the galaxy map. One more push, and they would break the Dominion forever. They had one target left. The Dominion homeworld. It was time to end this. For Emily, the Dominion had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. Across the galaxy, human fleets moved like a storm, wiping out Dominion strongholds one after another. No negotiations, no warnings, only destruction. Entire systems that had once been under Dominion control now burned in the darkness of space. The message was clear. Humanity would not stop. On the bridge of the UH Retribution, Admiral Cole stared at the holomap, his expression grim. The Dominion's defenses were collapsing faster than expected. Reports flooded in, outposts annihilated, Dominion fleets retreating, their command structure breaking. But it wasn't enough. Humanity had one final objective, and it lay deep within enemy space. Valkar Prime, the Dominion's homeworld. High Lord Vexor sat in his war chamber, his claws digging into the armrests of his throne. His advisors bickered, panicked, but he remained silent. He had never imagined a day where the Dominion would be on the defensive, yet here it was. The humans had proven themselves to be something far more dangerous than anyone had believed. They did not seek conquest, resources, or control. They sought vengeance, and vengeance could not be reasoned with. The Dominion's fleets gathered in a desperate attempt to hold the final line. At the edges of Valkar Prime's system, warships took formation, ready to defend their home. It was the largest armada ever assembled by the Dominion. Thousands of ships, bristling with weapons, waiting for the inevitable. They knew humanity was coming. The only question was when. Then the alarms blared. A massive human fleet jumped into the system. It was unlike anything the Dominion had ever seen. Gigantic dreadnoughts, sleek destroyers, and agile cruisers filled the void. The humans had not come to fight a battle. They had come to end a war. Vexor stood, staring at the incoming fleet. The humans had no fear, no hesitation. Their fleet moved with terrifying precision, their formations perfect, their weapons already locking onto targets. The Dominion had been the galaxy's apex predator for centuries. But now, the true apex predator had arrived. The battle began. Dominion warships surged forward, firing with everything they had. Plasma beams and missile barrages filled space, creating a hellstorm of destruction. But the humans did not break. Their ships moved like ghosts, dodging, countering, striking with pinpoint accuracy. One by one, Dominion vessels exploded into fireballs, torn apart by humanity's advanced weaponry. The humans had perfected war, and now they were demonstrating it for all to see. Admiral Cole watched from the command deck, his voice steady as he gave orders. Every Dominion attempt to flank was anticipated and countered. Their formations crumbled, their numbers dwindled, and their desperation grew. The once mighty Dominion fleet was being systematically dismantled. On the surface of Valkar Prime, the people of the Dominion watched the sky, their confidence shattered. Their leaders had promised them victory. They had been told that humanity was weak, insignificant. But now, as they saw their warships fall like dying embers, they understood the truth. The Dominion was losing. In the war chamber, Vexor's claws trembled. This was not just a battle. This was extinction. The humans weren't just defeating them. They were erasing them. He turned to his commanders, his voice hoarse. "We must surrender." But it was too late. Humanity had no interest in peace. They were here for justice, for Emily, and they would not stop until the Dominion was nothing but a memory. The battlefield was a graveyard of burning wreckage. Dominion warships, once symbols of power, were now nothing more than shattered debris drifting through space. The last remnants of the once mighty fleet had been eradicated. The humans had won the battle. Now, they would finish the war. Admiral Cole stood on the command deck of the UHS Retribution, his expression unreadable as he looked at the ruined Dominion defenses. His officers waited for his command, their hands hovering over weapon controls. The planet below, Valkar Prime, lay vulnerable, its last shields failing, its leaders in chaos. Begin orbital bombardment. The order was given. From above, human warships unleashed their fury. Beams of energy and kinetic strikes rained down like a storm, striking military installations, command centers, and planetary defense systems. Explosions lit up the surface, turning once mighty fortresses into craters. The Dominion's armies scrambled, desperately trying to mount a defense, but it was pointless. Their fate had been sealed the moment they chose to harm a human child. In the war chamber deep within the capital, High Lord Vexor watched in horror. Screens flickered, showing cities burning, defenses collapsing, and entire sectors falling silent. His advisors were gone, either dead or had fled in fear. "Send a surrender signal," he snarled to the last remaining officer. The officer hesitated. "Sir, what if they don't accept?" Vexor closed his eyes. He already knew the answer. The humans weren't here for negotiations. They had made that clear. The moment they crossed the line, the moment they took an innocent life, they had signed their own death sentence. The surrender signal was sent, a desperate plea for mercy. There was no response. On board the Retribution, Admiral Cole received the message. His jaw clenched. He looked at the name etched onto his wristband, Emily Carter. The little girl they had taken. The reason for all of this. Mercy had never been an option. The bombardment intensified. Human drop pods rained down, releasing soldiers who moved through the streets with terrifying efficiency. Any remaining Dominion resistance was eliminated without hesitation. One by one, the cities of Valkar Prime fell silent. And deep in his bunker, Vexor finally understood. This was not just war. This was judgment. Humanity had come not to conquer, but to erase. Valkar Prime burned. The once mighty capital of the Dominion, a world that had ruled over dozens of species for centuries, was now a wasteland of fire and ash. The sky, once filled with the proud banners of the Dominion, was now blackened with smoke, illuminated only by the fires of destruction. Humanity had not come to negotiate. They had come to punish. On the surface, Dominion soldiers fought with desperation, but it was futile. The human forces moved through the ruined streets like ghosts, their weapons precise, their strikes calculated. Every Dominion stronghold, every military installation, every last remnant of resistance fell before them. They did not stop. They did not slow. The only thing left in their wake was silence. Deep beneath the surface, High Lord Vexor stood in his war chamber, his once golden armor stained with soot and sweat. The bunker around him trembled as another bombardment shook the city above. The Dominion had ruled with fear, had crushed countless civilizations without a second thought. But now, they were the ones afraid. A transmission crackled to life. High Lord Vexor, a cold voice spoke. It was Admiral Cole. This is your only warning. Surrender now, or be erased. Vexor's claws tightened into a fist. His people were dying. His armies were broken. His fleets were gone. But surrender? No. He had ruled the galaxy for decades. He would not beg for mercy. He stepped forward, glaring at the transmission. Humans, you believe yourselves righteous, but you are no better than us. You bring death. You bring destruction. You. Cole cut him off. We bring justice. The transmission ended. A moment later, the bunker shook violently. The humans had found him. Above, orbital strike teams descended from the Retribution, landing with thunderous force. The elite Dominion guards rushed to defend their leader, but the humans moved too fast. Gunfire echoed through the halls. One by one, Vexor's last defenders fell. The doors to the war chamber slammed open. Admiral Cole stepped inside, his face unreadable, his soldiers behind him. Their weapons were trained on the Dominion ruler. Vexor stared at them, then at Cole. You think this will change anything? His voice was hoarse, filled with rage. You think wiping us out will bring that child back? Cole didn't answer. He raised his weapon. Vexor took one last breath. Then a single shot rang out. The reign of the Dominion was over. The Dominion was no more. Across the galaxy, its once mighty empire crumbled into dust. Without their High Lord, without their fleets, without their armies, there was nothing left but fear and silence. The species they had once ruled, oppressed, enslaved, beaten into submission, now rose up. On every Dominion-controlled world, rebellions ignited like wildfire. The chains were broken. The era of Dominion rule had ended in blood and fire. On board the UHS Retribution, Admiral Cole stood on the bridge, watching the ruins of Valkar Prime from orbit. His mission was complete. The Dominion had paid for their unforgivable crime. Justice had been delivered. But as he looked at the burning planet below, there was no satisfaction, no victory, because Emily Carter was still gone. The war had never been about territory, never about power. It had been revenge, and revenge never brought back the dead. The transmission had been broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. The moment the Dominion executed that little girl, they had unknowingly sealed their fate. The universe had watched in horror as humanity responded with the only language the Dominion understood: absolute destruction. Now, the galaxy was different. Every remaining empire, every ruling council, every species that once thought themselves untouchable, now knew the truth. Humanity was not to be provoked. There was no negotiation, no plea for mercy, once the line had been crossed. On 1,000 worlds, leaders trembled. Humanity had been underestimated before. Never again. Cole took one last look at Valkar Prime before turning away. The war was over. The message had been sent. And the galaxy would never forget. The fires on Valkar Prime had begun to die down, but the scars would never heal. The once mighty capital of the Dominion was now a graveyard, a silent reminder of humanity's wrath. The war was over, but its echoes would never fade. Across the galaxy, rulers watched in fear. The message was clear: harm one human, and your entire empire will burn. No species, no civilization, no empire was beyond retribution. In the halls of the Galactic Council, silence hung heavy. For centuries, they had tolerated the Dominion's cruelty, turning a blind eye to their atrocities. Now, they had witnessed the cost of such indifference. The humans had spoken, not with words, but with fire and vengeance. Admiral Cole stood aboard the UHS Retribution, his gaze fixed on the void beyond. He had done his duty. The Dominion had fallen. The child they had executed, Emily Carter, had been avenged. But victory felt hollow. Nothing could bring her back. War had changed humanity, hardened them. They had been explorers, diplomats, dreamers. But now, the galaxy knew them as something else, something far more dangerous. The Galactic Council feared them. Other empires respected them. And those who once saw humans as weak now understood the truth. Humanity was not weak. They were the storm. As the Retribution left the ruins of Valkar Prime behind, one thing was certain. The universe had changed forever. And in the darkness, every empire whispered the same warning. Never cross humanity. Never again. The end.